Vintage fuzzes are just the best, right? For me, there's nothing better as a player than turning up loud and playing an old school temperamental fuzz pedal. The early fuzzes especially share a surprising amount of DNA when it comes to the circuits, yet the outcome when it comes to tone is quite different. But first, let's rewind the clocks. The first ever fuzz pedal was the Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone, which was released in 1962, even though, yes, there are examples of fuzzy, distorted tones from as early as 1951, but more often than not, they were as a result of an accident or a technical issue. Nevertheless, it was an addictive sound for not only listeners, but for the guitar player as well, and the sound completely blew up in 1965 when Keith Richards played it on Satisfaction. And then all of a sudden, the whole world wanted a fuzz pedal. Enter the Mark I and also the Mark 1.5 tone bender, absolute monsters in the fuzz world. From that Mark 1.5 came the Fuzz Face in 1966, a pedal that I'm sure most of you have played a version of or heard. Around the same sort of time, late 65, early 66, came the Zonk Machine from Hornby Skews. And then we also have the Mark II tone bender, which uses those three transistors in a slightly different way. So today we're going to be looking at a Fuzz Face. This is a Spruce Effects Fuzz Face Germanium. A Zonk Machine. This is the Reeves Electro ZO. And finally, a Mark II tone bender. This one is from Expresso FX. But before we get into all that craziness, let's hear the three of them. So these three are probably my favourite modern versions of those three classic pedals, even though this one has silicon transistors and these two have germanium, and as I said, are all derived from a tone bender. The Zonk Machine's history is actually kind of murky. Not many people know the whole story behind how they came out, essentially, but it's rumoured that they were heavily inspired by the first tone benders, those Mark Is. They even came out in a very similar enclosure. People have described the tone, however, as slightly more harmonically rich than a tone bender, but for me, they sound nastier, spittier, a bit more glitchy as well. Moving on to the Fuzz Face, almost identical to a Mark 1.5 tone bender, the Fuzz Face is such a classic sound, and some would say it is the sound of fuzz. Almost like a big overdrive sound with a woofy bottom end that cleans up beautifully with your guitar's volume knob. And finally, the Mark II Tone Bender. Again, a similar circuit, going back to using 3 transistors. However, the heart of the circuit is very similar to a 2-transistor Fuzz Face. It uses that extra transistor as almost like a gain stage in front of the Fuzz Face. A lot of people have described a Mark II Tone Bender as if you're slamming a boost pedal in the front of a Fuzz Face. And from that description, it sounds almost exactly how you think it does. A higher gain, tighter, more aggressive Fuzz Face. So which one was your favourite? For me, the Fuzz Face is old reliable, the ZO is just all about the vibe, and finally the Fuzzbender Mark II, when paired with the right amp, can sound absolutely monstrous.